next Torah portion, we find one of the most cryptic verses, I would say, in the whole Torah. And I'll be honest with you, we're not going to be able to get to the bottom of this verse right now. We're going to shed light. Zera Shimshon is going to give us some nice bright light on it. But this is not the complete explanation of this verse, and you will see why. The verse reads as follows. We're in chapter 30, verse 15. It says, again, Moses is presenting Bnei Israel with the choice God gives each and every one of us. Re'eh natati lefanecha hayom. Moses says that God has given us today the choice of et ha'hayim ve'et ha'tov, life and good, ve'et ha'mavet ve'et ha'ra, or death and bad, evil. Two choices. And it's up to us to choose. Life and good, or death and evil. So Zera Shimshon asks, I love being positive. Positivity is the name of the game. But why did the verse start off with the positive side and then proceed to the negative side? He says it would have made sense to swap it. Why? The Midrash says that when Yitzhak blessed Yaakov, amongst the blessings that he blessed him, he said, Orerecha arur umvarechecha baruch. Those that curse you will be cursed, and those that bless you will be blessed. Yitzhak tells his son Yaakov. The Midrash says, why in that order? Why did he start off with the negative and then move to the positive? Because tzaddikim first have it hard, and then they have shalva, as we say, where they have tranquility and pleasure after. Reshaim, it's the opposite. First Hashem gives them shefa, beracha, pleasure, it's all good, and then boom, it goes downhill. It's always better to start off smaller and to grow. Because once you start it up here, and you're already comfortable, to lose that is very, very hard. And therefore, the Zera Shimshon says, based on that midrash, the Torah right here should have said, I'm giving you a choice, death and evil, and then life and good. But no, it swapped it. It first said the good part here over the bad part. Where elsewhere we see the bad part is said before the good part because we want to go on an uphill scale, not on a downhill. It gives two answers. Answer number one, the Zera Shimshon gives, is that before any pain, any calamity, or any hardship, we need to pray that it will not come or that we will be spared from it. Even though we know it's for sure coming. Lo aleinu, the hurricane is for sure coming. We need to pray that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves us. No, everyone says it's coming. The news, NHC, everyone is telling us that it's happening. We need to pray. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending it because we need to pray. And we need to pray for it even before it comes. And he says, based on that, we shouldn't anticipate death and evil. Rather, life and good should be the first thing when it comes to choosing, because that's what we need to pray for. That's the first answer. His second answer, I don't want to say I like it better, but listen to what it says. I'm gonna animate a simple Gemara for us to enjoy it. Remember as children, when either you were chasing your sibling or your sibling was chasing you, and you get to a room and you're trying to close the door, right? As long as the door is not closed, it could go any way. But as soon as the door is closed, and all the more so if it's locked, it's kind of done. Or if it's wide open, it's kind of finished. As long as it's in the limbo, it could go any way. Once the door is shut, it's very hard, the Talmud says, it's very hard to open a locked door. Now I give you the analogy of two siblings. It could be even sometimes between two spouses, one chasing the other with a slipper or something else. But let's keep with the analogy of two siblings. The Gemara says when the door is locked and closed, it's very hard to open. And the Zera Shimshon says, the reason why the Torah started with the life and the good as the first option is because even though death and evil is an option, that should not be a first option. Because if it could be entertained as a first option, it might stick. It might be like almost the door is already closed. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us the two options of the good or the bad, the good is the first option. That's his first question on analyzing this verse. The order of good before bad. Now listen to the next thing he says. And this I think is even greater. The Talmud relates, if God forbid there's a city that has two things going on, a famine and a plague, like an epidemic, which one do you pray first to stop? Do you first pray that the famine ends or that the plague stops? Contrary to popular belief, the Talmud says to pray that the famine ends first. Why? What's worse, famine or a plague? It seems like a plague is worse than a famine. No. Talmud says, pray that the famine ends so that everyone will have what to eat. Because if a person has no food, they cannot live. They cannot fight the plague. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends blessing and sends success to those who are living. So pray that the famine ends, so at least you'll have some food to eat. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu, once life has started, He can continue doing more good. This is what the Talmud says. Based on that, the Zera Shimshon asks, I hope we're not going too deep. Well, already when we get into that tone, everyone gets a little scared. Okay? It's like yeshiva. It's like learning in yeshiva.
Yes.
But I'm going to do it for you because we're all high level already. We've been learning a year for the Zera Shimshon. Okay? Based on that concept that the first thing that counts, the most important thing is life, and that Hashem only gives blessings towards people who are alive, then the verse, our verse, should have not said option number 1, life and good. Option number 2, death and evil. Option number 1 should only be good. Because who can accept good? Who can good go to? Only to someone who's living. So life and death is not even an option here. Obviously we're talking good to someone who's alive. So the word et hayim is superfluous according to that. Because who gets blessing? Who can you hug? Who can you do for? Who can you bless or give success to? Only to someone who's alive. Hashem also, He only gives to those who are alive. So what's the concept of life and death in this verse for? Just be good and evil. Listen to how shrewdly he answers. He reminds us that Reshaim, wicked individuals in this world, are already considered dead. It's very severe, very, very severe. And we'll explain exactly what that means. He says another thing. He says that a wicked individual's prayers are not answered. Why? He proves in Yeshayahu, the first chapter, the 12th verse, it says as follows. Ki tavo lera'ot panai, when you're going to come, God says, to see me, where in the Bet HaMikdash, Mi bikesh zot midchem remos hatzerai. Who has asked you to come here and trample in my courtyard? He was giving rebuke to the sinners, to the reshaim, to the wrongdoers. What, you think you just come to Hashem and bring your korbanot and not do any teshuvah? Hashem doesn't want it. So it seems from here, the Zera Shimshon says, that the order of prayer is first you need to do teshuvah and then you could pray. And he proves it from elsewhere in Yeshayahu. In the 6th chapter, the 10th verse, it says, Veshav verafalo. First you do teshuvah and then Hashem can heal you and answer you. So the Zera Shimshon says as follows. The first thing a person has to do in life in order to get blessing is to live. And we'll explain what that means. First thing comes life. How do you have life and how do you enable yourself to have your prayers granted and blessings coming your way? First thing is teshuvah. You want life? You do teshuvah. You do repentance. Then the prayers and the good will come your way. So when the option is hayim and tov, it means teshuvah, tefillah, and then beracha will come your way. Now what about the other side? What about the mavet and the ra? How does the Talmud call a sinner, an evil individual, as if he's dead? He's breathing, he's eating, he's sleeping, he's walking, he's moving, he has free will. That's still alive to me. Let's analyze what life means. If I show you a rock, is this rock alive? Rock's not alive. Why not? Listen to the next question. If I show you a plant, and I ask you, is the plant alive? The answer is yes. What's the difference? The difference is one grows and one doesn't. If I show you a shriveled plant or a shriveled tree, and I ask you, is that alive? You'll say, no, there's such thing as dead trees, dead plants. What makes them dead? The fact that they're not able to grow. So too in life. An individual who is growing is called alive. But an individual who is not growing, unfortunately, is called dead. They could be living but dead. They're breathing, they're walking, they're talking, they're moving, but they are unfortunately dead. Why? Because they're not growing. They're not growing spiritually. We're obviously not talking physically, we're not talking muscles, we're not talking the stomach, we're not talking in height. We're talking growing spiritually, growing in your connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Growing with your understanding of the world you live in and the people that you live in based on the lenses of our Torah, the view that God put in His manual, in His grand manual for us to live in. That's what the Torah is telling us. Option number one is life in good. How do you get life? Life is through repentance. Then you're able to live, and then the beracha can come down on you after you pray for it. Lo alenu, there's death and evil. Death means a person is not growing. They're already acting dead before they actually died. And then lo alenu, that comes along with the ra, all the bad and hardship that come after. This is a perfect message before Rosh Hashanah. When we come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're asking for life. That's our basic request. Our most simple and most important request. Everything else comes after. Parashat can only come if you're alive. Health can only come if you're alive. Children can only come if you're alive. Everything can come only if you are alive, if you are breathing. That is the most simple request we ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu on Rosh Hashanah. And that's the request we need to ask for our family, for our friends, for ourselves, for our community. But this year, with the insight of the Zera Shimshon, let's all come and ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for a life which is alive, a life of growth, a life of helping us to do teshuvah in order to give us that first stage of life and then continue with more tov. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us all with life and with goodness which comes afterwards for our families, for our friends, for ourselves. Long, healthy lives, but a life that we are really living and growing. Amen. Amen.